So thanks everybody. Looks we are 60 participants, and step by step, I hope in the next few minutes more people will join. We had a presentation all together, was about 3 weeks ago. We did a little overview about the Viberti family estate and its wines. And by that time, the goal was, as I say, an overview, an educational about who we are, what we're doing, and which grapes and which wines philosophy we're following. This seminar specifically is dedicated to the to what we consider our really special and rarity wines, our single vineyards. We already talked a little bit about single vineyards last time, but this time I will stay very focused on the three of our historical single vineyards Barolo label. A very short and quick note about Viberti before go deeper into the single vineyards. So for the people who are not yet familiar with the brand, I will give just a very quick overview. Viberti is a family estate based in Barolo. Barolo is a small village in the south of Piedmont. Piedmont is one of the wine regions in Italy located northwest. It's just a jewelry region, I will say, because it's like in the middle of the Liguria, that is the seaside on the south, and then Piedmont means pied du mont in French language, so foot of the mountains, because from Liguria, from the seaside, Piedmont is surrounded in its west part by the Alps that then follow all the French border and the Swiss border. My family started back in 1898 in a small locanda. Locanda is like an inn, a place where people used to stop by for a bite, for a few hours. And this specific restaurant called Buon Padre, like Good Father, was just located outside the village on the road that was considered the trade road, where people used to go towards Liguria, towards the ports and the market areas, versus the lower part of Piedmont. Here is the original picture of the house at that day, while this is how it looks, the house nowadays. It's still like a restaurant. It's still run and managed by my family, and it's still a place where people just pass by for this familiar attitude and familiar way to serve people that we historically have. That's my mother. My mother is a true human spirits behind our family, because she was the chef in the Buon Padre restaurant for over 50 years, and we fully dedicate her recently a label, is a Babera called La Gemella, successful enough to name after the same with the same name also another restaurant that we open in the center of the Barolo village. So I hope soon you as people can travel to Barolo, because you all be my guest. And ask Mike Brands, that will be in the conference call now, my direct email if needed. So, a few picture of our winery and few picture of our Tini, the big vertical barrel we use for our Barolos. But now we go. What is the main focus of the presentation of the seminar is the vineyards that we consider a real value of something that is extremely exclusive, because single vineyards wine cannot be reproduced anywhere in the world, and especially talking about vineyards in Barolo, we recently, since the 80s, thanks to an old journalist called Veronelli, we concentrate more our attention to vinify, produce and bottling wines from Barolo from specific parcel. Piedmont has 41,000 hectares. Piedmont has many like wine area. We are just in the southern part, as I said, the production zone of Barolo. But as far as you move north, you go towards Barbaresco production zone, Asti production zone, well known for his Moscato grapes. And then if you go towards east and southeast, you touch the Monferrato area. That is another area well known for Barbera grapes and other like small indigenous grapes. And the Cortese, that is the main grapes that is used to produce the Gavi wine, the white famous wine from Piemonte. But let's stay focused on where we are from. Viberti is a historical brand based in the village of Barolo. The map you're seeing now is the production zone of Barolo, where the area includes 11 villages. As you see, Barolo itself is the village that gave the name to the area, but each village has a different name as well. You have Novello in the south and Monforte. And in the north, you have La Morra, the tiny Cherasco that has only one vineyard, Verduno, Roddi, and then towards east, you go through Castiglione Falletto, Serralunga, Diano d'Alba, Grinzane, Cavour. And that's the same map where each color represents what we call a MGA, Menzione Geographica Aggiunta. MGA refers to a specific area, officially defined within the production zone of Barolo, and we can simply say that is the equivalent of French Cruz or Climat. So in each of those specific menzioni, you can find specific type of soil, exposure condition, altitude, and microclimate. So once again, the map. What I'd like to show you before go through the single bottling of Viberti is which vineyards are currently like owned or leased by Viberti. We start on top with Monviliero. Monviliero is, in my presentation, the first vineyards I'm pointing out because I'm going from Monviliero anti-clockwise. But Monviliero is a recent addition, is a lease for 20 years. It's a nice story behind because Monviliero that is in Verduno, for me, it's something I was looking for already a couple of years, and then in 2017 I had the opportunity to lease a vineyard thanks to a nice friendship I have with a winemaker that used to be my schoolmate. He's called Diego Mora. He owns a pretty large lot of Monviliero vineyards, about 4.5 hectares. And I leased out of the 4.5, 0.8 out from him. Fossati Alessandria is another leased vineyards we have since a while. It's about 12 years, and I can tell you that the total production of the grapes coming from Fossati Alessandria is 100% used to produce our Buon Padre Barolo, that is our blend, our Classico Barolo. Breco delle Viole will be part of the today's seminar in terms of focus. Breco delle Viole is a historical owned vineyards by my family since the real beginning of the history of the winery, so 1921. And in Breco delle Viole, we currently own several parcels you will see later in the next slides. La Volta, Castle of La Volta, that's where the name comes from. The second castle of the Barolo village, and is a castle that is fully surrounded by vineyards. Bergera, it's the western slopes of Barolo that then look partly look towards the castle of La Volta, and partly they look towards Novello village, that is the southern village of Barolo. And then Ravera first, sorry, I double touch. Ravera, it's a vineyard that is divided into two municipalities, Barolo and Novello. We currently lease one vineyard in Barolo. Perno, it's the only vineyards we own in what we consider the western area of Barolo, that I will describe a little bit later. Terlo, once again, Barolo village, eastern part of Barolo. Albarella. Barella was purchased by my family back in 2003, in the hot vintage of 2003, but we were renting already the vineyards. We are leasing the vineyards since 2001. Albarella, it's the slopes that are on the eastern part of Cannubi Boschi, and they look towards La Mora village. San Pietro will be part of the seminar today as well in the next slides. San Pietro, it's for some journalists less known vineyards, but for my family is one of the most important vineyards, not just for the soil itself, but also for a real way to produce the wine. We do a very special method that I will describe later. But I would like to be back, I'm sorry, because I want to describe you a little bit more about this. About the map of Barolo. When I was pointing out all the vineyards, I was talking to you about east and west. You should know that the Barolo area, it's nowadays is definitely divided in two types of soil that are located, the Tortoniano in the west and Helveziano in the east. We go more specific about the geology later, but the top, Grinzane, right here, they go towards Serra Lunga d'Alba, and they tend to give you wine with more tannic aspect, or better, with a tannin that is more austere. Wine with stronger attitude and less primary fruit. Now, one of the single vineyards, as I say before, historically owned by my family is the Breco delle Viole. Breco delle Viole is one of the MGA, one of the crew that it's extremely interested. It's a very large area. It's about 45 hectares that are located in the upper part of the village Barolo. You can consider Breco delle Viole one of the highest in altitude, because most of these vineyards, they stay between 390 with some peaks on the very top north here that are 480 meters above sea level. High altitude condition that, especially in the past 15 years, they are giving excellent results in vintages that in average they're getting warmer and warmer. Here we own a pretty large part, is about 10% of the total total area, because we own about 3.4 hectares and we lease about 1 hectare from a historical friend of the family. I pointed out a red line, as you see, because Breco delle Viole, there is a road with a stripe of houses, included our winery, that divide the vineyards in two sides, like more like a deeper and northern part, and then the lower part that is actually the southeast exposure, while the upper part is more south exposure. We have multiply parcel here. We have a parcel that we use to produce the Barolo Buon Padre. We have parcel we use to produce our single vineyards. And we have the only parcel nowadays planted, not with Nebbiolo grape, but with Barbera, that we have maintained and preserved over the last century. And we used to produce our historical label of Barbera called Breco. The geologies are Marna di Sant'Agata. Marna di Sant'Agata, it's the geology, but more interesting for you to know is the type of soil. We call it, it's evoluted. It's, you should know that all the Barolo area used to be in the past seaside, was a part of the Ligurian and Piemonte seaside. And then over the years, when the sea went, thanks to an inclination of 8 degrees towards west, when the sea went down, we had our what are considered our nowadays soil. But what does it mean evoluted or primary soil? There is 2 types of soil. When the hill is very like hikey, you can say, it's very like deep, so the erosion can be stronger. So when the erosion is stronger, we tend to have always the underground soil, that is the one that is the soil that is always available for our vines. So it's a type of soil then that is not evoluted at all, but is tend to be the substrate even in the upper part. But when the hill is more gentle and is not very subject to big erosion, so the soil is more evoluted and it's definitely more complex, especially the upper part, the substrate, the upper substrate. San Pietro, Breco delle Viola is definitely an evoluted soil, and here we have, as I say, we have several parcels. The green parcel here is the parcel that we use to produce our single vineyards. It's a parcel planted in 1961 and is about 0.5 hectare. We always produce about 3,400 bottles. We love this parcel because for some reason, the type of wine, the type of flavor you can always reckon is the balsamic, mint, cardamom, those like strong comfort feeling. This is very much specific of this parcel. But as I say before, the wine that comes from these vineyards, but moreover from the east, from the west of Barolo, are wine with more like gentle tannin always, and more fruit in the nose. They're always more like lively in the acidity and fresher. So the Breco delle Viole single vineyards from this parcel, it's exactly this type of wine, because especially in the long life cellaring, you always have a very like fresher feeling of the wine. But the key characteristic of the Viberti parcel here, it's the balsamic. Those are parcels we use to produce our Barolo Buon Padre, or better, they are part of the blend of our Barolo Buon Padre. And these are parcels specifically in the upper part. And this specific parcel here, it's the only parcel of Barbera currently planted in Breco delle Viole. Here we produce a label that we are very proud of it. It's the Barbera Breco. That is a Barbera that we grow, and then we also we work as a Barolo. To understand better, this is our vineyards, a label better. The Breco delle Viole. These vineyards or better, the yellow one is for the Barbera, and these are the one we use for our Barolo Buonpadre. San Pietro. San Pietro is, oh, just a moment. Poi, Alex, rispondi tu che io non posso. Rispondi tu, subito. Ah, sorry, the phone was calling. San Pietro. San Pietro has a surface that is one of the smaller of the Barolo area. Here we have about 17 hectares, and we own 1 hectare. San Pietro, and the total vineyards we own are the one in orange right here. Was never really like considered one of the best crew, because he has the same elevation as Fossati. So the crew that tend to take you then towards La Mora. But it tends to look a little bit more west. So it tends to look a little bit more towards the village of La Mora. As I say, some opinionists, journalists, they tend to say that the Nebbiolo ripening here is a little bit more difficult, but we were always doing great in our parcel here, especially in the last 15 vintages. With the warmer weather, we are having results that show a great, remarkable quality level. Because here we can have the ripening, the phenolic ripening. We can have the sugar ripening, means alcohol. But at the same time, we always can conserve an acidity that you can reckon among any other Barolo. Acidity is crispy, it's extremely fresh, and even in the long life cellaring, I had experience of bottles from the 1980s that are perfectly preserved. One of the things I'd like to talk about San Pietro. San Pietro, it's also one of the one we were always producing differently versus the other single vineyards. While all the single vineyards has more or less the same winemaking process, the San Pietro always is moved at the end of the wood aging in a closed tanks that can be in stainless steel or in concrete. Before being bottled. It's not something that we had invented ourselves, but it was something that comes from the history. My father in the 1970s, 1980s always had problem on selling Barolo because it was very expensive wine, and people used to prefer buying Dolcetto or Barbera because it was cheaper, was more Monday to Friday. Buying Barolo was a little bit more rare, and also for us as a producer was more difficult, the sales of Barolo. My father always used to stock just before the harvest some of his wines in stainless steel or in concrete, just to make new space for the new vintages. This method, moving wine from an oxidation time that is barrel, wood barrel, to a new environment where the wine is in a reduction environment because it's in a closed tanks, used to develop very different type of flavor that we call in a kind of a slang here goudron. Goudron is the feeling of bloody, is the feeling of when they making like the roads, they making new roads or they restoring roads over the summer, in a hot summer. So it's like the pavements. It's a mixture of feelings that are extremely special and typical of the old school Barolo. Not just because of the way to to produce our grapes or work in the cellar. But this type of flavor comes from a way of living. It was not easy to sell Barolo, so they were forced to store the wine longer and in different tanks than wood, to make new space for the new vintage. And for this reason, we developed some of the flavor that nowadays in some wine are almost disappear, but those flavors are very extremely typical of the history of Barolo. The red is the chapel of San Pietro, while out of the whole free parcel of San Pietro, only the top stripe is used to produce the single vineyards. The lower part is used to produce the Buon Padre. And again, the chapel of San Pietro, a nice pink chapel that overlooks the vineyards. The vineyards is just behind the chapel. And that's the label of our Riserva San Pietro, an average production of 3,200 bottles a year. La Volta, marvelous wine. The La Volta, it's definitely a very interesting cruise in the upper part, once again, of Barolo village, just following the same exposure of the southern part, the lower part of the Breco della Viola, and with a little bit less altitude versus the Breco della Viola, because while Breco della Viola start at almost 400 meters and then go up to 480, 490, here we are between 390 and maximum 420. And once again, I have designed like a red line because the vineyards that stays on your right side are the vineyards that are just beside the road that from Barolo is taking you to Novello village. And this is the only stripe that has a different exposure versus everything else that is on your left, where the exposure is homogeneous and is almost the same as the lower part of Breco della Viola. So you go from south towards southeast. Wine here really reflect what I was describing before when I was talking about the west area of Barolo. Brighter with big fruity nose and a tannin that is extremely velvety with what I consider a peak of elegance, especially in the early release. The type of soil is again evolved because once you will get the chance to visit here, you will see those free cruise I just pointed you out are definitely very gentle hill, and in some areas, especially in Breco della Viola, they look like a plateau. They are on the top of a hill, and they look like a real amphitheater. That's our parcel we use to produce the single vineyards. And this is another parcel we use to produce our Buon Padre. That's the label, La Volta. Here depends. We produce in the past no more than 2,500 bottles because especially in the 2008, 9, 10, we had a major problem with the vineyards. Part of the vineyards floated due to a big rain that happened here in 2008, and we lost part of the production. That's why you won't see the vintages 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, because in 2011 we have replanted all plot, so we will be back on track with the full production of this wine with the vintage 2015. Vintage 2015 that will be released next year and bottled next September, so in a couple of months. And thank you very much. Now, let me share now, stop sharing the screen, and let me ask you if you want to ask a question. If you want to make a question, you can talk or you can send chat, whatever you like.
Claudio, can you see the chat questions coming through or no? If they are, unfortunately I lost power here, so I'm now on my phone and I have no way of seeing the chat. So, Joe,
there's no question at the moment.
Okay, all right, you got it then.
Everybody needs to ask questions. Feel free to ask. And if you like the presentation and if you think can be helpful when you show around your clients, you drink these type of wines with your friends, I'll be very happy to retransfer for you the presentation. I will write now in the chat my email, and you can feel free to contact me and to ask me presentation or even more question. Here you are. I see Carrie saying that appreciate the presentation. I hope Carrie was clear, the presentation. I hope you like it. And thanks Olga as well from DC. Hope to see you again, Olga. And I'm sure I will see you all. I don't know if by the end of the year, but for sure next year I'll be on the road. You know me, everybody, that I like to be with your accounts. I like to do the storytelling personally and direct, and I'm just waiting to make it possible. Ciao also Hans from Atlanta. Thank you very much for attending. And there is a question. Wait, we have what were the best vintages of your single vineyards in the last 5-8 years? Okay, let me make clear one thing. The best vintages for us is only the vintage we bottling the single vineyards. So basically, we try every vintage to produce the single bottling, but we only bottling those wines in the vintages we consider top. Top means is wine that show clearly the climate, the cruise, and wine that can be long life cellaring. I can tell you we have produced it's 12 vintages in the past 24 years. And if you ask me, my favorite is 2011, 2007, and the new release 2014 that you say, but it's a bad vintage, supposed to be rainy. And my answer is a good winemaker and a good vineyard prove its best in the difficult vintages, not in the easiest one. Then we have another question. When was the Barbera planted in Breco delle Viole for Breco Airoli? 1921. So we are over almost close to 100 years old, and the vineyards always was maintained and replanted with the same clone of the vineyards. So we always been doing like a clonal selection on the way to maintain the real DNA of the vineyards. Other question. The yield per vine. Okay, good question. We generally produce about, in Breco delle Viole, in kilo of grapes, it's per hectare, it's 71, 73, 7.1 ton a hectare. That in acre will be almost maybe 2.3 per acre. And for the Barbera, it's naturally lower. It's 6.5 ton a hectare without green harvest. The average vine age is not, now they're asking the average vine age for all each of the cruise. there is not a vine age, because I can tell you exactly when they were planted. For the Breco delle Viole, we have 1961 for the parcel we use, the Nebbiolo parcel we use for the single vineyard Breco delle Viole, 1921 for the Barbera. In the La Volta, it was a recently replantation in 2011, and in San Pietro was planted in 1982. Sangeeta asking, I apologize if I missed this in the presentation, but I remember a while back that La Volta was damaged. Any update? Yes, I just told you that the damage was floating due to a big problem in the underground drain of the vineyards back in 2010, and we have replanted the vineyards in 2011. You're gonna have next year in the US some few hundred cases of the wine back on track. So the wine itself was first we remake the production in 2015. Faber say thank you Faber for attending, and please make sure to send me an email. I will type again my email because I will be happy to share with you more information. I have recently also produced for some journalists like an update of the weather here in Piemonte about 2020 vintage. So feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to share this small update with you guys all. More questions because I have a dinner plan with a couple of very good bottles of my Barolo in exactly 5 minutes. So if you have more questions, please proceed, because then I need to drink my wines.
Well, in that case, you go and enjoy your wines now. And if there's any other questions, we'll get them along to you. But thanks for doing this again, Claudio.
Before finish the presentation, I would like to thank you, all of you. I see we are over 60, 70 people attending the seminar. I would like to personally thank you for everything you are doing for our brand in your market in this very difficult moment. You know, every bottle, as you know, counts. So we are extremely we extremely appreciate all your efforts in every single pouring by the glass, in every single bottle you're selling, and I hope, and there is a promise to be back in your market to push as always, as you know me, and each of you will be my brand ambassador from now on, and I hope you can spread more of our storytelling to your client, to your friend, to anyone who are wine lover. So makes more Viberti wine drinker around the world. Thank you. Ciao, Jeff. Ciao, everybody. Thanks, OPC, OPC Wines team. Thanks to OFD. Thanks to all distributor and all sales rep involved, and to the one that attended today. And we try our best to make good wines this year as well. Just make sure to empty my cellar to make space for it. Ciao once again, and bye-bye. Ciao, Mike.
Thank you, Claudio.